Welcome to Chapter 23, Unit 3. A couple things I want to point out in the textbook because there has been a couple of page additions here. The circulatory system is combined with the respiratory system, but the lectures are separate. And each week you will do, one week you'll do circulation and the next week you'll do respiration. The chapter starts on page 494. And then if you go to page 516, on the right side, you will see a white page. What happened here is that they have added pages from another book, and that if you turn the page, you'll see 23.8, 515A. And these pages are covered in the lecture, and that's why they were added. So you have 515A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And then there's several questions and everything. So we added extra. Now, if you go to Figure A, it doesn't even have a page number. You go past 515I, and you'll see another white page. And then if you continue, you'll see a picture of the circulatory system, the blood vessels, the next page, Figure B, and then the third page, Figure C, which is right before page 517, is a very good picture of the heart. So if you're looking for a picture of the heart, it is there. Now, as I go through it, I'll try to identify where I am. The respiratory system has a very small section, and it is one of the quicker lectures because it is so tied in with the cardiovascular system, and that's why they put it together. Now, the focus of this chapter is looking at the blood vessels, the heart, and the blood. So that's what we cover in circulation. So let's get started. So, cardiovascular system. That is actually what we're looking at, how things travel throughout the body and how things get into the blood and then are get taken out of the blood. How does the blood do this? How does it take oxygen and nutrients as well as vitamins and minerals and waste products and deliver it? And it also, as I said before, it takes waste products from the cells and delivers them to get eliminated from the body. So the cardiovascular system touches every system in the body. Now this picture shows where the heart is in relation to your chest. It is angled to the left. It is about the size of your fist. And this bottom picture, the second one, they cut away the ribs. You can see the left lung and the right lung. And I want you to note that whenever you look at an anatomical picture, it is in reverse. It is as if the person is looking at you. So you don't want to confuse the right and the left sides, especially when we get to the heart. Often students have a hard time with that. Now you can see also on the heart that there are vessels on the muscle of the heart. The left lung, the right lung, the apex is the bottom edge, pointy area of the heart. The diaphragm is what separates the thoracic cavity from the abdominal cavity. And the pericardium is what holds the heart. So, we're going to focus in on the heart first. Then we'll look at the vessels, and then finally the blood. Now the chambers of the heart, that's what they're referred to. We're going to look inside a heart. And we have four main areas. There are two top areas, the right atrium and the left atrium, and two bottom areas, the ventricles. Now, this is coming up in a following picture that we'll be looking at. If you want to look at a good picture of the heart, go to page 499. 23.4 is the figure, and you could see where the atriums are. There you have the right atrium and the left atrium, and then you have the two ventricles at the bottom. So the heart works to do a lot. I mean, it has to be very powerful to get blood down to our toes and to our brain. But it also needs to get oxygen and dump off carbon dioxide. So we're looking at two facets of the heart, two jobs. And they basically are broken down into two different circuits. If you look at that picture of the heart, there is a wall that separates the right side from the left side. And the right side has blue color, and the left side has a red color. Now, the right side of the heart is involved with the pulmonary circuit, which we're going to look at in a minute. The color that is shown there, blue, indicates you have venous blood, or blood that has a lot of carbon dioxide in it. It's got to go to the lungs to dump off the CO2. Any blood that is bright red, as you can see on the left side of the heart, that is blood that has got oxygen in it, and in highly oxygenated blood. And that is what is being sent to the body. So if we look at this picture I have here, there is basically two circuits. We'll start with the right side of the heart. Notice the blue line below it. That is showing you it's venous blood that has a lot of CO2, and that is coming from your tissues. It picked up all the CO2 that your cells gave off. So it is delivered or dumped into the right side of the heart, and then the right side of the heart directs the same blood to the lungs. Okay, so we've started the pulmonary circuit, and the pulmonary circuit is short, and it involves the right heart to the lungs and back to the heart. And if you look from the lungs to the left side of the heart, the blood is now reddish in color. That's because the blood got cleansed in the lungs. It dropped off the carbon dioxide, picked up the oxygen that you're breathing in, and now it needs to be delivered to all the cells in the body. Oxygen is used for energy production. It works with glucose in the mitochondrion. So the lungs now take the blood back to the heart. That's the end of the pulmonary circuit. From the right heart to the lungs, and the lungs back to the left heart. Now the systemic circulation is what it means. It goes to the rest of the body. So it's a lot more to pump. So the left side of the heart is a stronger part, and it is going to send blood out to the tissues and the cells and give that oxygen to the cells because they need it to do their work. And then in turn, CO2 is picked up by the circulatory system, by the veins, and it's brought back to the right side of the heart. And the whole cycle starts all over again. Now this picture is showing the same thing, except now we can see the anatomical pictures. And if you look, red is the oxygen-rich blood, and blue is oxygen poor. The veins are oxygen poor. all but one vein, and we'll talk about that later. Same with arteries. All of them have a lot of oxygen except for one. Now, if you look at the pulmonary circuit, you can see it comes into the right side of the heart, then it's delivered to the lungs, and then the lungs bring back the oxygenated blood to the left side of the heart. That's the pulmonary circuit. The systemic circuit, just like I said before, it starts in the left side of the heart, delivers the blood to the brain and the legs, and then both of those areas, CO2 is brought back to the right side of the heart. So a complete trip through the entire system happens in about 1 minute. And that requires 2 passes through the heart, the right side and the left side. So, in other words, we've completed the pulmonary circuit as well as the systemic circuit. Now, this animation I am not going to play in this video. It just makes them too long. This animation is in the lecture, and as you read through the lecture, that animation is available, and I highly recommend that you play with these animations. A lot of them are interactive, and they allow you to test yourself. Okay, this picture, wow, right? Page 498. Same picture as your textbook. And you can read exactly what each of the numbers mean, because we're starting with the pulmonary circuit in the right atrium. And the blood gets dumped from the right atrium to the right ventricle. If you look on page 498, and it's the left column, and you'll see the big black 1 and the 2 and the 3 and the 4. It's going to tell you exactly what I'm going to say verbally. So read that and go along with it. Look at this information because you need to know this. Okay, so right atrium, where the blood is dumped, and it goes to the right ventricle. From the right ventricle, follow this. Use a pencil on your paper and follow it up, and you'll see it goes up towards 3. 3 is the pulmonary arteries. Okay, so arteries leave the heart. All arteries leave the heart. This one artery, though, is the one artery I mentioned before that is not arterial or oxygenated blood. This one is blood that needs oxygen. It's got a lot of carbon dioxide in it. So this artery is unique in that it doesn't have oxygen-rich blood. It goes through the pulmonary arteries. There's a left and a right going to the lungs. So 4, the blood flows through very small blood vessels called capillaries in the lungs, where it picks up the oxygen that you breathed in. Now it needs to go back to the heart. Any blood vessel that goes back to the heart is called a vein. Now, all veins, all but this one, are oxygen poor. But this one vein is oxygen rich. That's why it's red. And it's going to the left atrium, which is number 6. And that has completed the pulmonary circuit. So now we're going to start the systemic circuit. And it goes from the left atrium down to the left ventricle. And from the left ventricle, follow it now. It goes underneath the pulmonary artery, but that's the aorta. Huge, huge blood vessel. And that is going to branch off to smaller vessels so that the blood that's oxygen rich can be taken around the body. Now you can follow 8. It goes down and it goes up because it's got to go to the head and arms as well as the lower trunk. So the aorta goes up and it goes down. Once it gets down at number 9, both at the head and the feet, and you'll see there are 2 number 9s there, that's where there are capillaries again, just like in the lungs. Very small blood vessels where the exchange occurs. After the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide occur, now we have oxygen poor blood, both at the head and the feet. Follow it in. They're showing number 10 at the top and number 11 at the bottom. Both of those are going to the right atrium. The bottom, number 11, is called the inferior vena cava, and number 10 from the top is the superior vena cava, and they both enter the right atrium. Now follow this around and learn the sequence, because that's going to be an important part of this, understanding how the blood flows through the body. Okay, here now we're looking at the heart. And I sort of pointed out this picture before on page 23.4, not page 23.4, page 499. And you can see the oxygen-rich blood and the oxygen-poor blood, and the right side of the heart and the left side of the heart. And I want to point out here, okay, the blood is going into the right atrium. From the right atrium, it goes through a valve that goes into the right ventricle. We have 4 valves in the heart that are very important to know. These valves prevent backwashing of blood. So they shut down, they close, in order to allow pressure to build up so that the heart can really force that blood out. And that's where blood pressure comes from. I want you to think of when you have blood taken out of your arm. That's a vein. It's so slow, it doesn't come out. It takes a few minutes for them to get a valve, a tube through a blood. That's a vein. They don't have a lot of power in them. But an artery, they don't take arterial blood from you, because if they got an artery, it spurts all over. So here we come to, if you ever watch CSI or any of those TV shows, they look at arterial spray patterns on the walls all over the place. If somebody's artery is severed, it spurts out with huge power, because arteries have a lot more pressure behind them than veins do, because arteries have to pump the blood from the heart to the head to the toes. So there has to be a lot of pressure in the blood vessels to get it to do that. So arteries are a lot more powerful. Now, to get this power, you've got to have the valves in the heart shut down. And you can see the muscle of the heart right in this picture. They're not pointing out the muscle, but it's what makes up, it's the pinkish area. The muscle on the left side of the heart is much thicker. There's more of it, because that, when the heart squeezes, it's going to squeeze the blood really tight inside the ventricle, so that when it's ready to release it, it has built up a large pressure. So when they talk blood pressure, and I know we've talked about it either in class or you've seen it on the discussion board, hypertension is a problem of too high a blood pressure. And that means the heart is working too hard, and that's why you end up with problems. Okay, So the valves are very important. Now I want to point out there are two valves on each side of the heart. There's one between the right atrium and the right ventricle. Then there's one in the pulmonary artery that is leaving the right ventricle. And that's a semilunar pulmonary valve. And the valve between the atrium and the ventricle is the right atrioventricular valve. It's also got a couple other names, but for now that will do. Those valves close at a very specific time in the beating of the heart, as do the valves on the left side. There is also a matching left atrioventricular valve, and then there's the aortic semilunar valve, which is at the bottom of the aorta. So the ventricle gets shut off as it builds up its power to pump that blood into the aorta. This picture of the heart is very important to understand. We're going to be talking more about pressure. I'm going to stop this PowerPoint right now because I think we've got enough information for you to get moving. But that picture that's in the addendum that they've added, it's on page, it's right before 517. It shows you the valves, and it even tells you the names. And remember, I said the right atrioventricular valve has another name. It's also called the tricuspid valve. It has three sort of trapdoors, and that's how it got its name. Whereas on the left side of the heart, the valve is called the mitral or bicuspid valve. You do need to know these names. And the mitral bicuspid valve has two sort of doors, and that's why it got the name of a bicuspid valve. Now the two that lead into the pulmonary artery and the aortic, they call it the aortic valve and the pulmonary valve. That's another name. You're going to see many names, but those are good. Aortic valve means it's at the bottom of the aorta. The pulmonary valve, it's at the bottom of the pulmonary artery. This picture shows a lot more detail of the heart. Some of the parts you need to know, and some you do not. Myocardium, I want to point that out. That's what I was talking about, is the muscle of the heart. And if you look on the left side versus the right, look how little muscle there is on the right as compared to the left. Now this is on page, well, it's to the left of 517. It's figure 17.4. It's actually an appendix that was added to your book. But that picture really shows a lot more detail, which is nice. This one doesn't give you the names of it at all. And your lab book also has a good picture of the heart that you can use in your doc, which I assume most of you are going to try to do, as it will certainly help you study for the coming test. Okay, I'm going to end this now, and we'll come back to the audio lecture with the slide that follows it.